Hey, Mim.
Hey, Scarlett.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to Style Over Substance.
We're just two friends talking about our experiences working inside the fashion industry and also our observations from outside the fashion industry. It's sometimes serious, but it's definitely always a good laugh.
Always. We release new episodes every Tuesday.
So subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platforms. So I'm back, baby.
How you doing, Mim?
Yeah.
Feeling better?
Yeah, all good.
Nice to have you back.
Thanks. Yeah. I feel like a lot has gone on in the world.
A lot has gone on in the world. And is it today, as of date of recording? Is it sort of, we're embarking on the 70th year of the Queen's reign, and sort of good wishes have started to be sent
to the Queen?
Well,
I think
Charlie has started with like a little statement about it.
Yeah, well, you know how you got to drag it out for the whole year.
Yeah, it started.
Yeah, and you say that because...
Do you think Boris has invited them to start this early?
As a distraction?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had about 5 news notifications about the royal family in the past 2 days, so you know.
So people are looking forward to that extra bank holiday day this year. Remember, it's going to be like a, I don't know.
My work aren't definitely going to give it to us.
Yeah. The Queen.
No. My work may not give it to us.
No, that's a joke. Come on, the Queen's only...
It is sandwiched between an official bank holiday and the weekend. It's a Friday.
That's the point. It's supposed to bridge.
He's checking if legally we have to...
Oh, your boss is a joke.
I mean, I'm sure we'll have it, but the fact that that's been going on is upsetting. But I'm telling you now, I'm going to act like the most patriotic person alive if that doesn't happen and say I've got to go to Buckingham Palace and salute her.
Yeah, of course.
Don't get me wrong, I think the Queen's great. Little old lady, don't really know what she does, but good for her.
Off. I don't think I'll get it because I don't really get bank holidays.
Yeah.
But I do want everyone else in the Commonwealth.
And you know what? I remember was it her Golden Jubilee? I remember a lot of the Jubilees. Like I can, I mean, not many of them. They're only every 10 years. Yeah. I remember, is Platinum 60?
I thought Platinum was this one.
What's 60? Ruby.
Diamonds. Hold on, no.
Well, it's Ruby for wedding anniversary. No, it's not.
Is it all the same thing, though?
I don't... Actually, it's not, because I thought Ruby's 40, Golden's 50, must have been Diamond before.
This is Platinum.
I do remember the Golden and the Platinum Jubilee.
The one before was Sapphire.
Oh.
I don't even... That went over my head.
What do you mean? But is what, 60 is Sapphire?
Yeah, I guess so.
But like there was the big concert that Gary Barlow organised. Was that 10 years ago?
I think that was 20 years ago, if I'm honest.
No, it wasn't. No,
because 50 years is bigger deal than 60 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember being in Hyde Park with my school friends. This is before we met. Oh. Because we were only 10.
Because there exists a time.
I know. Only 10 years. And there was someone like doing this like sound on this like glass bowl.
Oh, where they take out the little like...
There was like, yeah, that you like almost like, you know, when you like just wet your finger and do it on a wine glass. But someone doing it with this giant glass bowl in the like centre of Hyde Park, which was very bohemian.
Yeah.
But I think we may digress.
Really quickly on the topic that's not related to our podcast, but the Queen's Jubilee, announcement today that the Queen would like Camilla to be referred to as the Queen's consort.
How do you feel about that?
Over Diane's body.
So that was when they got married.
Yeah.
Because lest I forget to add, as I always do, that was on my birthday. I couldn't do a single damn thing that day. I say this because if you're born on my birthday, it was also the Queen Mum's funeral and everything got closed that day as well. It was a terrible time. But they got married in Windsor.
Yeah.
The one rule was that she would not become Queen Consort.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think it's very nice that she has reversed that.
I don't think so.
Her
son and Camilla.
Let's be honest. We need any headline we can get to take some heat off of Andy.
That's honestly, they're working overtime for this.
They're working overtime, and the Queen has probably said over my dead body, but Andy's indiscretions of. Yeah, I think it's a bit weird, but I also think theoretically it's a reflection on times have changed, and a lot of families do come from sort of have divorce in there and all of the rest of it.
I think it's less about the divorce and more about the blatant infidelity throughout both.
Oh, for sure. But they have also been now together that entire time.
Yeah.
But
to be honest, when Charles becomes,
you know what? I just hope she's not my queen for long.
Yeah,
is that blasphemy? What's your fashion story?
So my fashion story is about advertising a little bit, fashion advertising. So on socials, I've been seeing a couple of adverts, Balenciaga adverts, and the first one, which is weird in itself, not the sponsored posts, like they've almost got like a new campaign, and the first one I saw is a post that was captioned Kim for Balenciaga, and it was Kimberly Kardashian lying down in her cat suit with their new...
I knew there had to be a reason behind this bloody Batman situation.
Yeah, but you know, and it's a really simple video, and she's just lying down, and she's almost like struggling to pick up this bag. Not intentionally, she just looks like she's having a hard time modeling.
Throw that shade.
Lying down, she just picks up the bag and she just does a little pose thing. It's a rubbish advert. And I thought, oh, you know what? They've been sponsoring her for a long time and she's been wearing their stuff. It's a little partnership, not surprised. But then today I saw a post and it was Justin for Balenciaga, and it's Justin Bieber dressed in Balenciaga like sneakers and hoodie and whatnot in the studio, and he was in their last campaign, actually, come to think of it.
And which was quite unusual. I don't really see him as a Balenciaga guy.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time. And I thought, wow, their adverts are really boring. Like, what?
And would have cost a lot of money.
So much money. And then it got me thinking, fashion adverts are a waste of money and time. They are so bad. And there's an advert, it's a Lancome, it's not fashion, it's makeup, but it's a Lancome advert for their perfume Idol, and it's got Zendaya in it. And every time it comes on, I think, oh God, this is so shit and vacuous. And it's basically like, you've seen it. She's in this pink dress and there's all these other models sand dunes, and they're like dressed in pink. And it's very like Kendall for that Pepsi ad, whereas like a lot of words that are being said, but the words don't really mean much. Those I am, I will, together we can, something like that. And you're like, what does this even mean? What can we do? What will you be? Huh? And I just thought to myself, like, why do these fashion companies and these makeup companies even bother with these adverts? Because when I see them, my brain just like glances over them. I don't even give them any attention because they are so boring.
Yeah, and you know what? Their most powerful tool, whether we want it to be or not, is influencers. And they all get paid. So like, I think, what was it? I think it's Anastasia Beverly Hills, mainly known for their eyebrow products, has launched lip products. And an influencer that I follow in the fro, Victoria McGrath, I think so, posted the most beautiful campaign. So her husband works for her and is sort of a photographer, was into animation, very creative. Yeah. And it is one of the best beauty campaigns I may have ever seen.
Oh, I might have to watch that.
It's I'll send it to you and we can maybe post it. Well, not post it, but link to it or add it to our story or something. It's a really just like one sort of, it's like a dark room and sort of one spotlight of natural light and very zoomed in. Like you could see the peach fuzz on her face, which I'm just glad that's even there as well. Like it's just her applying the lip liner and her lipstick, but it's just really beautifully shot, clearly on a really beautiful quality camera, way better now than any advert you would see. I do not need to see another mascara advert where it's got the asterisk basically claiming obviously this isn't the effects of the mascara because we've got false lashes or whatever. I don't need to see that one more time. And I think that actually the influencers who are worth it will make it worth it for the money you're going to pay them to advertise it, is how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, and also what they do so well is you see the product in action and you see it over a period of time.
That's all we want.
In a number of scenarios and for a number of occasions. And that's when you think, oh, this is something that could work for me genuinely. Or, oh, that bag, at first I didn't really like it because I didn't really know how to style it. But now I've seen XYZ person with this bag and they've actually convinced me that it could work in different scenarios. I might go and get it. Something that kind of puts the product to the test and not these like vacuous like phrases which don't make any sense. Or like these two models trying to be sexy in a fragrance ad, or it's just,
I think we've moved away from, it's funny because we talk a lot about aspirational fashion, but that's not the kind of aspirational fashion I look for that doesn't relate to me. I aspire to someone that you connect with. We've said it time and time again. On Instagram, you follow certain people where you either want their style or you have a similar style or you have a similar body shape and they are your inspiration. And so that's what I mean by aspirational, but I don't need what marketing companies think that you need. You want that person to style the bag 10 different ways and you're like, hang on, that's actually kind of how I dress. Do I want that bag? Or I love this person's style so much that I trust that if they're choosing this bag, that's kind of where life is going, that you want to see it in you. So you want to see, and you can check with your favorite influencers. She actually has been wearing that foundation every time she's done a makeup tutorial the last 2 months. So she must like it.
Yeah. And also we've talked about what's the relevance of haute couture and things in fashion.
Yeah.
And I think that this is where it makes its case, because these really big high-end fashion brands, I don't need sponsored posts. I don't need like these really basic photo shoots of whatever. What makes you want to buy into the brand is when you see them at their best.
Yeah.
Buy into that glamour, or you want to buy into that wealthy lifestyle in some way. See their haute couture shows and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. But I'm never able to afford this £10,000 dress or coat or whatever.
So then you look at their main
things. Yeah. And that's the best way to do it. Not all these other stuff I just don't think is necessary or relevant to us as consumers anymore.
So true.
Anyway.
Times are changing.
Yeah. What is your fashion story?
Well, speaking about times are changing, we discussed this and I haven't been able to do the maths properly. Okay. But I think the Met Gala was in October, right?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
And the whispers were that Riri, Miss Rihanna herself, was potentially pregnant then because of what she wore, the sleeping bag, the blanket, whatever it was. And it appears she probably was, because she's pretty pregnant now. But she wouldn't have been necessarily showing then, but we don't know how far along she is, but she has got a bump.
Yeah, I don't think she couldn't have worn something tight. No way.
Yeah. So she's got a real bump. She had a very, what I can only describe as a very stunted photo opportunity. Because if you haven't seen the pictures and you've been living under a rock, her and ASAP, Miranda's favorite person. That's
fantastic.
Yes. Mim does not approve of ASAP for Riri.
No, not for her. No, I don't. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah. So they are walking the streets, I think, of New York, minus degrees. It's pretty much snowing outside, and she is walking with sort of flared or loose bootcut jeans with holes at the knees, and then just wearing this long pink vintage Chanel coat, half buttoned just past her breasts to just release the bump, with this heavy jewelry, this sort of beautiful rosary cross that looks very Tudor, just walking through the streets of New York as you do. So the Queen is having a baby.
I think, the photo shoot was stunted. It's like, oh my God, your baby must be so cold right now. Put the bump away.
Yeah.
But I was grateful for the fact that we did not get a stereotypical cliche with the announcement post, because I hate them. I'm really sorry, guys out there. I hate baby showers, gender reveals, half naked pictures.
I will be taking some half naked pictures of myself, but not for general consumption.
I was going to say, like, are you going to post it on Instagram? Because I will bully you.
I just think actually I'd want to document it. It's one of those things where you look back in sort of 20 years and you think, wow, my body once looked like that. Yeah. I sort of just want like some like silhouetted. No one needs to see it. I don't even necessarily want to see it.
Taking pictures of yourself while you're pregnant. No, I 100% document that time.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's life-changing. I'm not against that. But I've seen.
I think we're just getting too caught up in this life of, are we doing this for ourselves or are we doing it because half the world does it?
Yeah. I've seen some really cringe photos of women who are expecting, they're completely naked holding their bump, and then they've got all their other kids kissing their belly, or their husband is and they're the only naked person in the picture, and you're like, this doesn't make sense, guys. And then they post it on social media and it's just a bit too cringe for my liking. Like, who was that actress who did it first on the magazine cover? What's her name?
Demi Moore.
that
was it her that like she's got the famous pregnancy shoot? I'm sure of it.
The first one who done it for a magazine cover, and it was like very like scandalous, like stunning. You know, I get that, but then once like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 100th, millionth person has done it, then you're just like, oh, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think you just, in those moments, you just have to check yourself. Who are you doing that for?
Yeah. So I really appreciate the fact that Rihanna came out with something which was far more casual, far more in keeping with who they are as people. Like, here's my belly bump, also my vintage puffer Chanel jacket with my Christian Lacroix like jewelry. Because
so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because for as long as I've known you, you do not like an exposed pregnant stomach. How did those photos make you feel?
No. I actually liked the photos.
So for context, Mim just never used to like if someone wore like a crop top if they're pregnant. You're a bit like, I don't need to see it. Day to day, you're walking down the street, I don't need to see your pregnant belly.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how people style it. I don't feel that strongly anymore about it.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, I think it really depends on how it's styled and what you're wearing and all of that. That's my view on it. Sometimes I think my problem is like sometimes these images can come off really corny as like elegant and like really beautiful. That's kind of my overall opinion about them. But yeah, if you're pregnant, take all the photos. But I quite like the styling, despite it being like minus 10 degrees in New York City.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean,
really quickly, when I saw the images, I thought they were a little bit heavier on the photoshopping on her face, or the tweaking, or the filter.
Really, I didn't really clock that, but to be honest, I just didn't know she just had loads of makeup on type of a situation. But what it just reminded me, the pictures, I don't know if you know that TikTok trend of like, oh, she looks great and he's there. And that's, I don't know what he was wearing. I couldn't tell you for the life of me what he was wearing. But so was she. No. But she is the queen. And I think it was even, I saw an article where it's like billionaire Rihanna, business mogul, singer, actress, and her boyfriend ASAP, musician. But I mean, I don't really know how I feel about the relationship, but very exciting. And also, I think that often, and I'm sure she will if she does any more public appearances, I think when someone as cool as Rihanna shows that you don't have to style a pregnancy, don't go walking around with your bellies out just in the freezing cold. But I imagine she'll style herself not in maternity wear, because maternity wear sucks. Mm-hmm. And if you're already sort of feeling a bit not yourself because your body's changed, the last thing you then want to do is wear clothes that you wouldn't normally wear. You want to kind of be able to style yourself.
Like the same person to some extent. 100%. And I think maybe that's why I liked this. You don't have to come out in a crown. You know how these pregnancy photo shoots, they're like, I'm the regal queen.
With their hair like covering over their boobs. Yes. Like a mermaid.
Yes. But yeah, I thought it was cool. And it's an end of an era, isn't it? It's like, you know when like Janet Jackson's mum, and you're like, Janet's a mum now.
Yeah. It also means that there's no new music coming soon. We interrupt this broadcast to say, go follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @StyleOverSubstance pod. There you'll find our weekly fashion topics, all the stuff that we discuss in each episode, and our polls.
Or reach out to us at StyleOverSubstancePodcast@gmail.com for new suggestions of topic discussions, or even to share your own fashion stories. We also have a YouTube channel, Style Over Substance Podcast, if you'd rather listen to our episodes over there.
Back to the episode. This week, we're going to talk about creative directors, what it means to be a creative director, what they do, and kind of just all things creative directors.
Yeah, creative directors, the role is so larger than life. In the big fashion houses, the creative directors are the celebs of the brand, and they embody the brand to some extent. And there's such a mysterious role, I think, as well. You know, a lot of like the fashion greats were the creative directors of the brands. And recently, sadly, over the past few years, a lot of the big name designers have passed away. But also, when we talk about creative directors, whether they're alive now or they've since passed, like since their heyday, the role seems really incestuous within like the upper levels of the fashion industry, because you get the same designer jumping from brand to brand to brand, or in some cases, the same designer holding multiple roles at the same time for decades. And it's a very like seemingly a very tight-knit group of people who occupy all these jobs. And there's a lot to discuss really about the mysterious and glamorous role of being a creative director.
Yeah, definitely. So, quote unquote, what a creative director does, for those who don't know, is they oversee the design and aesthetics of a brand. Traditionally, it was with a focus on product, but we are seeing in more recent years that it is maybe being the presence of the brand, maybe being in charge as well of the marketing, but also being that public face. And I think more recently, we're seeing people arguably younger, more of a social following, and they have so much more to bring to the brand than just their
skill and
their design skills. Yeah,
I agree. I think the role of a creative director, when I think of it, is that you have to be all in all the time. You have to have such a clear vision for everything, as you said, like marketing, product, social media, who's going to be representing the brand. But I just get the impression that you can never switch off. You have to be here, there, and everywhere. And then maybe the first jumping off point for us could be when we have designers like Kim Jones, like Karl Lagerfeld, who have been creative directors of multiple brands at the same time. Even like J.W. Anderson, who's creative director of his own named brand, and Loewe. And I just think, how do you do it all?
Yeah. I mean, I think you've obviously got to have a great team. But so for anyone who doesn't know, when Carl was alive, R.I.P., love him, he was the creative director at one point of Chanel, Fendi, and Karl Lagerfeld, his own label.
He did women's at Fendi.
Women's
Sure and Fur or something like that. Yeah.
But still, to me, that sounds mental. Because I mean, the last company I worked at, the creative director's schedule was already impossible to get a meeting in, because obviously there's the marketing stuff, the merchandising, the design for shoes, bags, couture, embroidery, client meetings, and then also just mainline.
Yeah.
Imagine having that. I guess he wouldn't necessarily. Would they host those meetings? I don't know. Would Carl? I think he was quite hands-on. Because at the end of the day, your name is on the chopping block, essentially.
Yeah, you have to, like, don't get me wrong, these designers, you might not like their designs or you might be massive fans of them, but there's no like question in my mind that they're putting in the work and the hours. And I think you have to be going to the meetings and you have to be like signing off everything. You might not be designing everything, but
yeah.
And it's not like maybe just like putting your name up as like, yeah, I'm the creative director or I'm the CEO or whatever, and not doing the actual work that's involved in it. So yeah, for sure, I believe that they did a lot of work for these brands. And you know what? Genuinely, when we talk about that fashion industry and like drug use, and you know, when you think of like typical 90s like era, and like really skinny models and like a lot of, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll sort of image, I'm not surprised, because the amount of energy you have to have to do all this work, I'd be like snorting coke in the bathroom as well.
That's the quote of the podcast right there.
Well, it's true. But what's your thoughts on it being a really incestuous industry, in that designers hop from brand to brand to brand, and then when you factor in things like most of the biggest brands are owned by LVMH, and they might leave one brand and just go to another one, like we've said, Eddie Slimane or like Kim Jones has done. Yeah, what's your thought on that?
So my first sort of approach is for other creatives who aspire to do that job. It's got to be pretty demoralizing, because you're either in the club or you're not. It probably feels a lot like a private members club. And the people we're talking about, as you said, work really hard. So it's not like it's not deserved. But I think if I were aspiring to be that role, I would be really demoralized that you just are either in favor or you're not. And these aren't really jobs that easily get advertised. And of course you sign up sort of with a recruiter or something anyway. But the reality is, because, I mean, I can't think, maybe at least last year, we talked about how there are really probably between 5 and 10 groups that own all of fashion. So if you're not in one of those groups, the jobs probably get passed around, like you said, to similar people.
Yeah.
And that's got to be really difficult. But then I also think you don't want to be giving out a role to someone who can't do it. It's a really challenging role. And I loved Raf Simons' collection for Dior. It's one of my favorite Dior collections they've ever done, his couture collection. But I wouldn't mind betting he couldn't handle that role at Dior.
Yeah, but I think that can be down to a number of things. So I think maybe he just didn't gel what the brand were after in a creative director. And sometimes just it's a cultural clash.
Yeah.
It's not more than that. But going back to your last point, saying that some people, because it's such a huge role, they want to be sure that the person who takes on that role can do the job. The argument could be had, would you give the role to someone who's already got a similar job and give them two?
No.
Juggling two jobs, or is it better to give someone who's fresh that one job because they can devote all their time to it?
I would definitely want just one person to do it. And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there is anyone now juggling really multiple. I know you said obviously with JW Anderson, but there's nothing like the leagues of when Carl used to do it.
No, but Kim is doing Fendi women's and couture, as well as men's Dior.
Okay. But I think Kim might be like sort of the last of that type. There are a few. At one point, it was just everyone did it. Like Marc Jacobs would be at Marc Jacobs, but also at Louis V. Tom Ford was also, was he at Gucci?
He was at Gucci at the same time as Tom Ford. Like his own brand.
I think he did something else as well as Tom Ford. I can't think. But like, I think that used to kind of be part and parcel. And I think we're sort of learning that that's probably not best. I think if someone wanted to get the best out of me, that definitely wouldn't be the right way, is to give me multiple things to be in charge of. Yeah. But also I do think the roles probably got larger. And don't get me wrong, Carl did a lot. But the role has got larger with the emergence of social media. This person not only is overlooking, do all the collections work? Does the show fit what we want it to be? Are the people that we are asking to advertise fitting? Are they promoting the right products? There are now things like advent calendars. All of this stuff has to be overseen by this creative director.
Like, if you think about it, only about 10 years ago, we weren't buying designer phone cases.
No.
And cases like AirPods, as well as like trainers. We weren't, but like designer trainers weren't,
designer trainers were Nike or Adidas,
by casual wear, like sportswear from brands, which weren't categories before.
So yeah, there's the categories you're talking about as well are like, they're probably not the fun things to design, but they might be those little money makers that you just need to do. They still need to have sign off. They still need to be overseen. It's a big job for sure.
I think the reason why brands maybe hire designers who have worked at other big brands, or hire designers who currently have another job on at the moment, is because they're trying to like all do their business strategy in the same way. So they're all doing logo mania at the same time, or they're all doing sportswear at the same time. They're seeing what's selling and what's working at the moment, and all these brands are jumping onto that, and they just want to go with someone who they know has performed and brought in money, as opposed to the likes of someone like hiring someone like Thierry Mugler, who is going to like design something that you're never going to wear to the supermarket, like go in the supermarket in something that's really out there and like simply for the fashion and for the design and the concept and all that. They're not going to choose someone like that. They want to go with someone who's proven to bring in money on the basics, on the small leather goods, on the t-shirts, so I think they play it safe by choosing from the same pool of designers.
Yeah, for sure. And also think of how many creatives there must be in the fashion industry. We only know the names of a handful because for whatever reason, those are the people deemed to be hot or not, whatever it is. And fashion plays on that. And so, yeah, I wouldn't mind betting that there's an element of, well, like, I mean, think top names, they're still top names that were juggling stuff with Marc Jacobs, Tom Ford, Carl. You don't know many names from that era that aren't them. And it's similar now. There's only sort of the handful of the top 10 brand names that you might know. And then other than that, you don't really know anyone else. And there's probably a reason for that. And also, I definitely think there's the rise of hiring a creative director who already brings a profile. So we have seen that with Kim Jones for Dior, I'm going to butcher names, Alessandra Michelle at Gucci, Matt Williams at Givenchy, Olivia Rustic. How do you say it?
Oh, Olivia Rustic. Yeah. But Balmain.
Yeah, Balmain. But again, like, so he helped them be the first fashion label to pass 1 million followers on Instagram. You know, because he is friends with all the Kardashians. He brings a persona. He is already a personality. And we live in that world now. We want the names that I said earlier of Tom and all of that stuff. Their personalities, their personas that we all love to follow. And that is the kind of people we are, right? We like these people that we can follow.
Yeah, that's so true. Because you know what? As much as people love Carl, he was really about like the art of what he was doing. Like, I don't really remember seeing a lot of information put out there about his personal life.
Yeah.
Him in interviews, that wasn't a thing. Now we have so much access to these people. Like, we kind of all like Tom Ford because he's a very particular personality. You know? He in himself is an interesting character. As you said with Olivier, he's the guy on social media.
Yeah.
So we get a glimpse of him as well. And I think we kind of like, as consumers, we demand that as well. It's not like with Phoebe Philo, as you said, there's a handful of names that we know, and we know Phoebe Philo is one of them. And so everyone was like, when she left Celine, everyone was like, oh, she needs to start her own thing. She needs to start her own thing. This brand needs to hire her. This brand needs to hire her. Like, we as consumers are almost encouraging this level of like nepotism from the industry because we want to see the same people designing the same things. And if they leave one brand, we're like, where are they? They need to be doing something else. Someone else needs to hire them. So it's not just like the brand who's necessarily all just like hiring from the same pool. Fashion fans, you know, are demanding that as well.
Yeah, I think that's so true because you fall in love with what that person did for the brand. So as I said earlier, I loved that couture collection for Raf. Probably didn't follow him loads before then. So I will always have a soft spot for him. I will always check in on what he's doing. And, you know, had Carl left Chanel, we would have all followed what he was doing. And we were also invested on who replaced him. And it's always that appointment after somebody is great. We're invested in and we're holding them to that standard. And I think it's a bit like sport where you're sort of watching these people move around. I guess like, you know, player transfers to other teams. It is our way of not just having an allegiance. Say if your brand is Gucci, that's the only place you buy your stuff from because you love that brand. It doesn't really like you can just love what someone does for that brand and you sort of follow them and it creates a greater buzz. And maybe that's why it happens, because it creates like a fashion journey for users who maybe wouldn't necessarily have followed or gone to that brand. I don't know.
Yeah. I've got another question.
Okay.
So we've spoken about, wildly successful creative who have been at the top of their game for the biggest brands in the world. Now, I think Victoria Beckham is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Victoria Beckham owns her own label, Victoria Beckham, and she is the creative director, as far as I know.
I think so, yeah.
But there's been a lot of rumors over the past, 10 years or whatever, that financially her label struggles and that her husband, David Beckham, footballer, kind of financially keeps the business afloat. What's your thoughts on her as a creative director? And do you think, first off, at the time, she was known as a Spice Girl when she started her label. She was not really taken seriously as a designer. And if this weren't her own brand, she would have been fired a long time ago, because the success of the brand just directly correlates to your success as a creative director. Yeah, what are your views on Victoria Beckham?
So I love Victoria Beckham. My mum loves to hate her because that was the culture at one point. We all loved to sneer at her with her like really fake tan, big boobs, weird fashion choices. So for her to go into fashion felt crazy. Yeah. I personally think she's like earned her fashion stripes in my book. I think her aesthetic is actually really nice. I think her style is great. And she now personifies the style of her brand, all of that. Yeah, I guess obviously if she was at the front of Fendi and it wasn't performing, there would have to be, I guess it's again like football. If your team's not winning, the manager gets fired. However, players still need to perform. Yeah. So I don't know if it's just her fault. I mean, she is the correlation in all of this in the last 10 years. But is it just her fault that the brand's not succeeding? Should someone be having some harder conversations with her? I actually think she's removing the main line and they're only going forward with the fusion from now on, which is probably more cost effective and therefore probably more lucrative in terms of, I don't know, it's really difficult. I remember I had a real resentment with Stella McCartney at one point because I thought equally her brand probably wasn't super successful but was able to be kept alive.
Yeah, we'll get on to her.
But also having been on the inside, I know how hard it is to keep it financially alive.
Yeah.
It's a really, I'm amazed as many companies still exist as they do. I don't know, it's a tough one because equally I feel like I actually also worked for a brand where that very much was the case at one point, where money was being pumped in to save it. Actually, I've had that numerous times. And I don't know if that's fair. Because say if I started a brand tomorrow, I don't have that behind me. So it means that my brand can't ever be as successful from the get-go because of that.
Yeah.
But that's life. So
yeah.
What do you think about Phoebe?
You mean Victoria?
Phoebe.
Huh?
VB, Victoria Beckham.
Oh, VB. Oh, I thought you were saying Phoebe.
No, VB.
Yeah, I like her.
Yeah.
I think you're right. She designed...
I actually think she's like a really funny, cool person too.
Yeah. Designs clothes that look comfortable. They look like stuff you could wear for lots of years, but they look mature, but fun, but classy.
Yeah.
She's done a really good job to like where she's positioned what Victoria Beckham brand kind of means and stands for and stuff. And I would, if I had her money, I would probably buy stuff from Victoria Beckham. I am surprised that as a former Spice Girl, she doesn't gift and like, she doesn't like call on her famous friends to be wearing her stuff all the time and promoting her stuff all the time. I I might be wrong. I'm sure they gift stuff out to people and whatnot, but I thought she'd be doing
I've never really seen it on social.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would be expecting everyone on Loose Women to be wearing like Victoria Beckham, everyone on like ITV, everyone on like BBC. You know what I mean? Like, no, but some of our like the biggest names in TV to be wearing her stuff on their social media. All her like Hollywood friends, because everyone knows and loves David. You know, you're gonna you. I just thought that she could have been like an Olivier, whereas she had lots of followers on social media. People follow her because she's a Spice Girl as well. And it would have...
And because she posts some juicy pictures of her husband sometimes.
Go. And like, I thought she could have made it work. I think another thing, when you were mentioning about it takes a lot of money to make these brands work and stay financially afloat, and that's right. It's if you're like a small brand, then you can do everything on the cheap. If your brand is centered around luxury and being high end, you have to fake it to make it. You have to create the illusion of opulence and wealth and all of that in the marketing and in your shows and everything. So you have to pump a lot of money into it for it to even be considered a luxury brand.
Yeah.
And that's what's tricky. But yeah, I thought that it could be a far more popular and mainstream label than it is.
Yeah, and I would go as far to say that I can think of off the top of my head, her brand is probably the thing I would most likely wear day to day of any brand. Because her clothes are quite approachable. They're quite timeless, all of the rest of it. But anyway, love her.
Maybe it's too expensive.
I mean, I don't know how much stuff is from there. And actually, I don't know if this is really cheeky. I'm actually currently doing it. I'm not sure where the jumper's from. And maybe if I'm proud of it enough, we can do a Scarlett's version and the original. I saw this jumper. Oh, it's not Who Made It Best. It's a carbon copy, essentially. I saw this jumper, really liked it. I was like, I can knit that. So I am. It was £600. I'm knitting it. Granted, like I've spent decent money on yarn, but not £600. Yeah. And there is a Victoria Beckham jumper that I want to do the same with. So maybe I am a tout or whatever it is. What is it when someone sells copies?
You're just a fraud, mate.
Yeah. I'm a knitting fraud for high fashion. So let's move on to Stella. What are your thoughts on her?
Well, Stella Mccartney, really, because she's got a famous father, she was afforded a career in the upper echelons of fashion because of her father's connection. Not to say that I don't like her stuff. I'm not the biggest fan, of like the bags. I'm not the biggest fan. I've seen that she's designed some nice clothes, but yeah, she has definitely 100% benefited from this, like being on the inside and enjoying that nepotism and being part of the in crowd from very young. Like before she'd even graduated from uni, I think she'd been offered a job at, was it Celine or Chloe?
Chloe.
And so yeah, that is an example of how the industry can be incestuous in like a bad way.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind betting. So she was very ahead of her time for wanting to do the vegan, no leather thing. But I also think she was almost too ahead that had her dad not been Paul, she would have gone bust before we're now in this surge of people realizing much more about animal welfare, veganism. She would have been gone in the dust.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, it is that fortune, but I guess it's like anything. And I remember when I first started interning, and we've discussed this before, where someone almost like said to me, you know, fashion is a wealthy person's privilege because it starts with interning. You can't afford that if you're having to rent somewhere, whatever, all of that stuff. It's then such an expensive thing to keep it going. You really do need a lot of financial backing. So unless you have that, your kind of time is up pretty quickly. And to stay around in it, and even in this thing, now the stuff you've got to pump into marketing. And I really hated that it's very much a people, you know, business. It's all about the people that you know, networking, all of that stuff. I hate that. I don't think that seems fair, that if you don't know somebody, you're not going to get as far. But it is so like that. I
think that's because, and I'm not saying it's a good thing, but because it's such a creative industry, it's not down to necessarily your qualifications. Oh, I have this certificate and this certificate. It's a creative industry. So everyone in the industry are like freelancers in a sense. It's that sort of fluid sort of career, that knowing people is how you get along. You know, it's not like the law profession where you have to pass certain
qualifications. Yeah.
I will say about Stella McCartney though, she's found her niche. Well, in my opinion, I think her niche is in her sportswear with Adidas. I think she does some really cool workout stuff. But even now, so she benefits from her connection to the Beatles. Right now, she has a Stella McCartney kids and Beatles collab where they've got like print and stuff on kids' clothes. I don't know how the other members of the Beatles feel about it, but they must be getting their commission as well, their royalties as well. So maybe they're happy about it.
Yeah.
But, like, very much so, she's used that connection to the music. And even she had a collaboration with Taylor Swift.
Yeah. So I think that Victoria Beckham has probably tried to push this away when you've said, why doesn't she? I think her game plan has sort of been to not rope in her friends, not, you know, the only time you ever really see them amongst it, her family, is at her shows. And only till recently, when she launched her beauty in the last sort of 2 years, she has referenced being a Spice Girl. She sort of didn't early on, and I think she did some charity shirts that maybe were to do with her being a posh Spice. But she's
Spice Girl, she kind of got bullied for it.
Oh, for sure. But and obviously now this is the resurgence where they've had successful comeback tours, and also people have made their peace that she's not part of it, and all the rest of it we now don't sort of cloud her with being the bad singer who just sort of posed. She's earned her credits in this way more than sort of almost as a Spice Girl now. But her lipsticks are called like posh lipsticks and stuff like that. She's used that name. One of the lipsticks is called Spice. All of this stuff, which I think is a really nice full circle sort of homage. But she's very reluctant to use that connection. And I sort of really respect that. Like, because obviously we're then saying like, oh, you know, oh yeah, Stella, you're having that Beatles. It's a really fine line.
I think it's different when you use your past success to transition.
Very true than your dad's. Yeah.
So
very true.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about creative directors, when there's two creative directors co-directing at the same time, like with Prada And there's another brand I can't remember at the moment. What's your view on working with another person?
I don't know if I could do that but I guess you have to remember that unless it's your own brand, but then if you've set up a brand with someone else, you have decided to have sort of the same goal or whatever. I guess you come to a harmonious decision. I don't know. I think it would be really difficult because aesthetic and taste is so personal. What I think is a nice colour or a nice shade of red is not necessarily your favourite. And no one's right, but someone's got to be right or someone's got to decide. And if you don't sort of necessarily aren't in tune with that, I can imagine I would find that really difficult. However, one of my favourite, I don't actually know if they're still going, Piloto, which is two people. They were really big on print around a similar time to Mary Catron So, who again, I don't know if she's doing much anymore. But I loved them, and whatever they were doing worked well. I thought I love print. I always have loved print because I'm really scared of it, and I love when people show how you can do it really well. So yeah, I think it works well in points, but I think that's got to be really tough. And then I guess what the irony is, some places need two, but like Karl Lagerfeld can be it for three places.
Yeah. Wild, isn't it?
It's a funny one. Would you want to share that job?
No.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
How do you design a collection with someone? Unless you like completely divvy up the responsibility, like you're in charge of all the promotional video and image thing, and I'm in charge.
I think it would have to be.
Yeah. And I think also when there's two of them, although there aren't many creative director duos out there really, but I think when there's two of them, you're less likely to remember them as like a consumer. Remember like the larger than life personalities, but when you have two creative directors, they almost fade into the background, like no one really cares.
Yeah.
So there's
so
that
true.
Yeah, how do you forge a career for yourself in the most selfish way possible, a career in which people will remember you and appreciate you for your talents when you're sharing the spotlight with someone else?
Yeah. And then when you go on to maybe another venture, is that always as a double act? Are you always can be Ant and Dec?
Yeah. When do you like say, okay, I'm done with this now, I'm going my own way?
Yeah. I just think it makes things harder. And also when your head is the forefront of a brand, granted shared or not, I don't want to have to be politely going, I made the decision on that red, so you can make the decision on this. I don't want to have to be appeasing that when it's essentially quite important, because otherwise, if the brand doesn't succeed and I'm like, well, I didn't like that. I think you've got to, if in this role that is so time consuming, all encompassing, you want to know that you've given it your all and everything that you believe is there.
Yeah. You don't want to resent the other person. Like, well, if we'd done it my way, then it wouldn't. Yeah, for sure.
When the bad reviews come in.
Do you think you'd still want to be a creative director sometime in your life, having designed for accessories?
I don't know. The last few weeks I've had a real little twinge of I could create something. I could start something. But I actually don't think I would enjoy that. I think it's really hard wearing that many hats. I think that it would be really stressful, and I don't think it would be harmonious with the life that I also want. It's that thing of, I want a successful thing, and that would be amazing. It's the top accolade.
Yeah.
But the price that comes at is never having a plan of your day, control of your day, and probably getting in past sort of never eating breakfast or dinner in your own home.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the way we see work has shifted.
It's totally changed since the pandemic, and I think that's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think I was in bed this morning on TikTok, and I was watching this guy's, like, his different videos, and he worked a corporate job, and I think like a couple of years ago he quit, moved back in with his mum, and now he does, everyone's work from home sort of thing, and he works doing a similar thing but in a different industry. And he was like talking in a way that, like, he doesn't really care about his job role as long as he makes good money and he can piss about at home and get paid for this hybrid, flexible working scenario that we're all kind of doing in some way, shape or form. Then, like, he's cool with that. And before, he used to be about climbing that corporate ladder, and now he doesn't care so much about it. And I feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, because
enough and I can stay at home, then that's all that really matters for a lot of us. Also, couple that with the fact that working in fashion, there's many different ways to skin a cat. You don't have to go through the, like, traditional route of being a director, because now you can be a creative director in a number of different ways. And
and actually it is a role that, I think you could be creative director of any company. It's often maybe just disguised or called maybe a brand manager, or it might more be like the marketing manager somewhere, I don't know. But, like, even a law firm, you have a persona you want to be seen as, you have your brand values. That is also a creative aspect to that. I don't know. I think there's lots of different ways, and actually it's finding that fine balance. But I think what's a really interesting thing about being a creative director is that it's not only creative, but it's business based. And those are two things that have always very much interested me. But I don't know, life's too short to not be able to enjoy the hard work that you put in, I don't want to work all those hours to have all these things that I can't enjoy.
There's a lot of burnout.
Yeah. And I actually think it's quite worrying that Olivier Baumann, I'm not even going to try his surname now, got appointed at 24, creative director at Baumann. Where the hell do you go from there?
You stay there and you become the Carl of Baumann. You single-handedly revive
until you can't, or until you burn out, or until you get cancelled these days. Like, but that's really young to succeed the top position.
Cry me a river.
No, I know. But these people are people who, like, I don't know if you've seen that latest Leonardo DiCaprio movie on Netflix. He got paid 35 million for that.
On Don't Look Up.
Yeah. So and like, you don't need that. You don't need any more money than that in this life. So what's he doing it for? He's doing it because he likes it. So you're not just always doing it. These people are workaholics.
Mm-hmm.
So Olivier isn't just doing it. Like, he will want to keep doing this type of it's crazy.
And what you said about being workaholic, there's also an element of, if I were Olivier, I've made all this money. I've got all these adoring fans who love my work, who love the brand. I'm at the pinnacle of my career. But if I stop and if I give up, or I resign, I'm going to get replaced.
Mm.
And then if I don't do it, someone else will, sort of thing. So you got to keep running that treadmill. And because you want to be at the top of the game, don't you?
Yeah.
That's what you've always aspired to do. And even though it's hard work, it's long hours, it's all of those things. It is also glamorous, but it's hard work. But there was an alternative, sitting in your like penthouse apartment all day and like walking through the Champs-Elysees, you know, every Thursday, and then getting and that's it. Like
I know my cousin once said to me, it doesn't really matter what car you drive to work in, you're still sat in the same traffic.
Yeah.
You know, whether it is like whatever car it is, yes, okay, one car might be a bit more comfortable, but you're still sat in the same traffic as everyone else.
That's why everyone in London takes the tube, whether you're rich, thinking rich or not, because it's like
but regard, like wherever you go, you're still in that same situation. You still, if it's a 3-hour car journey, you're still having to sit in a car for 3 hours. It doesn't take that journey away or whatever, which is very true.
Yeah. We are like all human, regardless of how glamorous our lifestyles are. And I think it is nice to know that a lot of these designers actually, you know, they do put in the work. It's a tough job. It's not just like, you know, with music, for the most part, you can be a pretty shit singer and they'll slap an auto-tune on you. Like, as long as you look good in outfits and whatnot, you can be a massive star with talent. There's a lot of skill that goes into being a fully fledged creative director. Whether people appreciate your designs or not, it's still a tough gig. And
for sure. Would you want to be one?
I'd like to experience. I'd like to experience.
I want to be able to work from home, but everyone will have to come to me.
I'll do it for a couple years. There are also brands that don't have creative directors, and that's a whole different thing. But got anything else you want to add?
No. What do you think our poll should be this week?
Oh, our trusty poll. Who's your favorite creative director of all time?
Yes.
We've seen a number of greats die recently.
Yeah. A special mention, we mentioned him earlier in the podcast, to Thierry Mugler.
For sure. And it'd be nice to see who your faves are. Also, it's quite funny that, well, it's not funny, but again, another TikTok reference because
such is life these days.
I was watching a funny one, and this guy was saying that he's seen a lot of tributes to Thierry Mugler on TikTok by like Gen Zers. They've been using images that are not Thierry Mugler's work. They're just Mugler, like, you know, like the bodysuits now and the current of Mugler, and actually not using reference images that was stuff that Thierry designed. It's like, that's funny. That's cool.
That's funny. Classic.
But that'll be our poll. So we'll have it on our Reddit forum, and also, of course, on Instagram.
On Spotify.
And also on Spotify, Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Style Over Substance, guys.
Don't forget to check out our Instagram or Spotify to respond to this week's poll.
Bye.
Bye.